I want to thank everybody for coming. I was really hoping for a bigger crowd today, and I was hoping we'd have some kids here. Unfortunately, it's a Saturday, and they probably figured they don't have to go to school today, so why go to school today?
Yeah.
So anyway, I appreciate all of you coming. We have a great panel. We also have some people in the audience who also went to one-room schools. And
when I was asked about my experience in teaching in a country school, I was happy to learn that people still remember the country school. A high school friend and her husband stopped by my family home one evening and asked if I would consider teaching next year, starting in late summer. And I was finishing my college work at Western in Macomb, and I could use more money, I thought, and so I started to teach. I decided it would be a good experience, so I met with board members and accepted the job for 8 months. Back then, when you were in a country school, 8 months was all that the children went because they had time, they needed to have time off to work with their family, getting ready for spring planting and things like that. So it was just 8 months that I had in my first year. Where I taught was a small little town called Gerlaw. If you've heard of Monmouth, Illinois, Gerlaw is about 12 minutes north of Monmouth. And a friend of mine was the first grade teacher, a very close friend. We'd gone to high school together. And we would leave early in the morning. She had a car, I didn't have a car, so she'd stop, pick me up, and we would go and spend the day and then come back home. We had a very nice, we had a 2-room country school, and we had a furnace. We had a lady that came in and cleaned for us. And then we had a brand new refrigerator, and so all the students would be able to have, I had the upper grades, and the first year I had 15, and the second year I had 18. My friend had the lower grades, and she had 22 children the first year, and I think she had 12 first graders. She had quite a burden, and we seemed to survive, though, in spite of everything. I don't know what else maybe I could include in this.
do you have anything to say about how you taught? How you taught? How did you deal with that many kids at that many different levels? And
Well, actually, we did all right. It wasn't really too hard. In retrospect, when I look back, I think, yes, I had 4 in the upper grades. And the second year I was there were 6 that were ready to graduate. I mean, 8th graders, they were passed their test and they were ready to be freshmen in high school. Now, exactly what I taught them and they had as learning, I guess it happened, but exactly how I did that, I'm not sure. We did have books that we got from the superintendent of schools for that age group, and I think I probably got them ready. But at this stage, I don't remember exactly what I did. But I know they went on to high school and got along just fine.
Well, my story is a little different than most anybody's, because I'll take you back to 1942. And in 1942, I graduated from Hampton High School, Hampton, Iowa, and so on. I went for 10 years to summer school in Fayette that summer, and came back and had nothing to do until the Friday before school started. And it was time for that school to begin, and the teacher hadn't arrived back from California. So I had a job. And so there I was with 10 10 weeks of school. One of the things I learned in school, by the way, was I had to learn to write, because one of the teachers there told me that you can't teach if you, the way you write. And every day that summer, I had 10 pages of polished to learn to do rounds and rounds and rounds. But anyhow, so there I was with that first day of school. And so I was lucky. I had a cousin who was teaching in a country school. And bless her heart, she helped me organize and get things ready and so on. So that was it. I lived in town, and of course I had no car. And so there I was. Well, I went out on the school bus when the high school kids got picked up. Why, I got off on the school. I did more teaching, I think, that year on the school than I did in the schoolroom, because the kids all had to help them with their high school. But anyhow, I had 17 students in grades 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8. And I don't remember just how many in each row, but I had 17 of them. In the kindergarten, I had a kindergartner who came in the spring, so that made 18 for me. I got paid $85 a month for it at that time, and at the spring, I think it was the last month or two, I got $70. The janitor work, I did all myself. You had the first thing you did in the morning was build the fire, and you had the cleaning and all of that to take care of and so on. Our supplies and books and so on came from the county superintendent's office in Hampton. It was on his office was on the 3rd floor of the clerk's house. And so I had to get up to pick things there and all the way and so on. And then get them to school, which was something. It was a fall. You asked to see if some of the things that happened. Well, one afternoon in the fall, it was sunny and nice.
Hold the mic.
Hold it up, okay. And the superintendent, the county superintendent came to visit.
Washburn?
But
Was his name Washburn?
no, I was in northern Iowa, way up in Iowa. And he sat down in the back seat and went to sleep. And he slept for I don't know how long. The kids were very quiet. They were very good. I couldn't have asked for a nicer. I mean, they just knew what was going on. And all we proceeded. And he finally woke up and looked at his watch. And then he got up and just softly walked out. And so on. That was the end of that. Well, of course, I got a report back that came back as to how it was. And I got a good report.
That's a good one to write down.
The children, their very favorite thing to do was to play Annie Over. And they played throw the ball over. You people who went to school there, you don't know what Annie Over was. And that was the one that they played.
Over the schoolhouse building, right?
Over the schoolhouse, oh yeah, over the schoolhouse. That was their favorite thing. We had a Christmas program. I was fortunate enough that I played piano enough that we had an old-fashioned organ here. And so we could work there. I mean, so they enjoyed that and we had that. Back in those days, there was no law that said you couldn't spank. And I did. I spanked Jimmy one day. I never will forget. It was the first one I ever did. I did some more after that too. But that one and so on. And you know, he was an angel after that. I didn't have any trouble. And you know, it kind of helped with the other kids. And you just know that I could do that too.
Did you use a paddle or your hand?
I used my hand. In the spring, we had a thunderstorm one day. And it was really loud outside. And this poor little kindergartner girl named Mara was crying and crying. She was afraid. She'd never been away from mother during a storm. And here I wasn't sure what to do with a child like that. And so on, but there was a third grade boy, Glenn, who came up to her mom and said, "It's okay, Mama, it's okay. That's just Mrs. Santa Claus dropping potatoes." And she laughed about him, that was the end. And so on. Then in May, one Monday morning, I got off the bus to go into the school, and the aroma was terrible. And the man driving the bus says, "I think you've had company around here over the weekend." It was the smell of skunk. And I said, "Yeah, that sure does, doesn't it?" And I went in. Well, it was horrible in the school. I opened the windows both sides, and so on. And I was making the fire, getting it ready, and all of a sudden there was noise underneath the front part because the front was upset a bit for us and so on. And so oh my. And as the noise came up, so did the smell. And I just couldn't take it. I was sick and all. And I walked the half mile to the nearest family home and said, "We can't have food today. We just can't. I can't be in there. I just can't." Just say. And so on. And so they got word from the children to come and so on. But they didn't get word to Marvis, the little kindergarten family. And so they came bringing their high school daughter to take her into town, and because she'd missed the bus. And when they had to take me into town, and I felt so sorry for them because, and I'm sure that their car smelled horrible afterwards and so on. And I was sick that day with the smell of that. And so then we didn't have school for a week until finally they cleaned it up. They went under there and found the skunks under there fighting down and so on, and got them out and got it cleaned out and so on. But I never could eat in that building again. I mean, it just, my stomach just would not take that and so on. So that was my end of that first country school course.
Thank you.
Charlie Pierce. I go with this lady beside me, Peggy Pierce, and she went to a two-room school. I went to a one-room school. Oak Ridge District 27, which is located in, up near Hampton, in Hampton Township. It's the same school that my grandfather attended and that my mother attended. And I started there in about 1926 or 27, and was graduated from there in 1933. From the standpoint of a student, when I look back, I think the teachers were grossly underpaid. You know, when you think of the responsibilities they had, well, in the case of Oak Ridge District 27, the teacher, of course, had to build a fire every morning in the wintertime. She had to bring the coal in from the coal shed, unless she could get some, she would get some of the big boys occasionally to fill the coal buckets and bring them in. And then she was responsible for 8 grades. And I think that was a real challenge when you think of how important it is to teach the first couple of grades and to do all of this in the same room. From my standpoint, it worked very well to have recitations, because by the time I was in the 6th grade, I knew the questions to the things that would be people would recite aloud in the 7th and 8th grades. You could sit there, and if you were attentive and interested in what was being said, you learned a lot, and not only in your grade, but in other grades as well. Couple of little problems. I have, for years, I had a black spot in my leg, and this came from Mabel Dahlheim, who stabbed me with a lead pencil. If you stab somebody with a lead pencil, some of the lead comes off. So I had a true tattoo from her. I'm sure I deserved it. I don't know what I was doing, but I must have been giving her a bad time. Another thing, my very first teacher there she discovered that I was nearsighted. And she discovered that in a very simple way. I couldn't see the blackboard. And I was supposed to be able to see something on the blackboard. And she noticed that I would do all kinds of strange things to get close to the blackboard. And she decided, well, this kid just can't see. So she told my mother, and the result of it was glasses, in first grade, which at that time was sort of unusual. Not very many kids got glasses, I think, even if they needed them. Among other things that the teacher had to do, of course, was programs. She had to pick out kids who could sing or who could act or who could recite. And that had to take a great deal of her time. So, all in all, I'd say that teachers at that time had a real challenge, and they really weren't paid very well to do it.
I'm Peggy Pierce, Charlie's wife, and I marvel at all of us here who have gone to college and have advanced degrees in a lot of cases. And we started out in one-room schoolhouses. Those teachers had to be really smart to teach all those kids and have them end up so excellent students. I went to a two-room schoolhouse from first grade through 8th grade. Was grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 taught by a woman teacher, and grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 taught by a man teacher in the other room.
Mike.
And he was like principal he was the principal over both rooms. I'm afraid I don't remember too much about that. It's been a long time, but I do remember that in the upper grades we had declamation contests, and we memorized declamations, and then our teacher, we competed against each other, and then a winner was selected, and then that winner went to a kind of a declamation contest between 8 or 9 schools in the district, and then the winner of that went to the county, and that was a big deal. And fortunately for me, I was one that got to go to the county, but I lost out very badly at that point. I also remember we had something called a cloakroom in each the upper grades and the lower grades. And in that cloakroom, we would hang, we each had a designated cloak for our clothes. And there were benches, so you could sit down in front of your cook, take your boots off, because we walked to school and we had winter boots and winter clothes. And when we had to go to the bathroom, I remember you'd hold up your hand and say, I was in 2nd grade and I had to go. You know, you would tell the teacher. And she would say, can you wait a few minutes while I finish what we're doing with grade 4? And then I'll have one of the kids go with you. So then you wait, so you learn to ask early because you knew you were going to wait for a while. And then she would assign one of the upper, like 4th graders, go in the cloakroom with you and help you get your boots on and your coats and walk a long distance out to the outside toilet with you in cold weather. That was quite a challenge. And we also carried our lunches, and our lunches were kept in the cloakrooms. And we would, when it was lunchtime, we go in the cloakroom together, sack or lunch pail, whatever it was, and take it out to our desks, sit at our desks to eat lunch. Then after we were all through, if it was nice weather, we went outside for, say, 20 minutes before she rang the bell. It was time for school. But if it was really cold, we would play games inside the school until it was time to start classes.
I went to school in a one-room schoolhouse, and we had 22 kids for the majority of the 8 years that I was there. Same teacher. I was the only kid in my class, all 8 grades, and most of the time I would go with the class ahead of me, which had 2. What happened is I'm convinced that companies nowadays could have used our teacher as a efficiency expert or an organizational expert, because she rarely did anything herself. It was always assigned to the kids. The kids would help other kids with boots and coats. They would carry water. They would fight over ringing this sized bell. I remember the bell being shiny.
I'm going to start off with that. Go ahead and ring it.
And the kids, that was the big deal. And there were certain things, I don't ever remember her being distraught or upset. And if she did, she hid it well. My sister's here, and she went to school for kindergarten at first. And she's had some firsthand experiences with that chair, the little cone thing there that says dumps on it. So she talks about that, and that's what she took away from her first 2 years. But she was very efficient, and we were talking about what teachers do to help them teach. Well, the school that we were in, I went to school, is in the middle of a ghost town. It's a place called Goodwin, Nebraska, no longer there. But a railroad man built it, and he built it on the tracks, of course, and we had a train depot, we had a general store, we had a bank and brick, which nowhere was brick. That's just fascinating to me. But a livery stable and several houses, and they put this school right in the center of the school. And one of the fascinating things about the school is one room, and we did have 2 outside bathrooms, but we had oil heat. That was fascinating to me, because all we had was wood heat and cobs and what have you when I was growing up. So whenever you went to school and you just turned a little thing here in the fire, that was just fascinating to us. But anyway, every day a train would go by, and this train would be anywhere from 80 to 120 cars. She would organize, because we would hear in the distance the horn. So she was organized to the point that math and art and reading, and I can't remember what else, would go, when the trains get ready to come by, she'd put them over to those windows, and they would be assigned places on those windows with their papers. Some would count the total number of cars, some would count the number of locomotives, some would count a certain color. There was different things that they did that she used every piece of scrap that there was available. And to me, when I look back at that, I just, why was that so hard? I mean, the train went by, she count them, it made no sense, why not? So, and the only thing I can remember too much is that it was a country road, of course. We didn't have gravel or rock or anything like that, and in the spring and fall, it would be a mess. So my dad had a little Ford tractor, and he built a little, what I call a house on the back, had a roof on it. And when the roads were so bad and the ruts were so deep, she would park out on the highway, which is about 3 miles away, and then I'd go out this little Ford tractor and go pick her up before school, bring her to school. We'd do our thing in school all day, and then I would take her back. And of course, I was at that time 9, 10, 12 years old, whatever I was. I couldn't wait to do that because that meant I could drive the tractor and all the rest of it. So it was a win-win deal. She was in this nice little hut, and I was out freezing to death. But somehow I don't remember that being as a bad thing then. She was a phenomenal person as far as I was concerned. I know there was a death in my dad and mom's family, and she even babysit us. And I mentioned before about the livery stable. Well, when I was younger, I could take a horse to school. I could ride the horse to school, put it in livery stable, go into school and come back. Now the problem with that is, as there were more kids in our family that got of age, then my parents felt that they should ride the horse as well. It's not fair. Well, after about 3 or 4 kids, the horses could only carry so much, and then all of a sudden I couldn't take the horse to school anymore. I'll never forget that. But a perfectly good horse at home and a perfectly good livery stable, and I'm walking. It somehow didn't make sense to me. But it was an experience. I'm fond of it. I had no problems with it. I don't remember anything bad happening. We had someone mentioned a little while ago from the audience that, the EPA and the health department, all those 3-letter agencies that are around would just die if they went in and checked us out. The merry-go-round maybe wasn't to code, and the dirt underneath the swings maybe wasn't to code. But I got to tell you, the 22 kids that we had enjoyed it. It was fun.
I went back to 1935 is when I started, and it was just 3 grades, first, second, third grade. We didn't have kindergarten back there in those days.
Tell us your name and where you went to school.
I'm Lucille Grew, and I went to school at New Windsor, Illinois, and it was just a one room. I remember as we walked in the lobby, the front door, there was, like she said, there was coat racks on one side for the girls, and a place to put your boots, your overshoes as we called them. And there was a little one-door restroom for the girls, no inside plumbing, but and on the other side was for the boys, and to hang their coats and boots and things. And then as you walked into the main room, there was 2 rows of desks on each side, and in the middle was a big, huge, round register. And I don't know who stoked the furnace, or if it was oil or gas or what, but you could stand on that and get warm or get dry, whatever, in some winter time. That was fun. And then if you walked up to the teacher's desk, was of course in the front, and then there was a little like a stage. Not a stage, you just walk up a step or 2, and there was I remember this round circle of little wooden chairs, and that's where we would go to have our reading class. She'd be in the middle, and we'd take our turns reading a paragraph or whatever. That was kind of interesting. And all around the sides was blackboards, and above that was our penmanship charts to write, learn how to write. And we never did print, but I remember. And I remember she said we always had to raise our hand if we needed to go use the little girls' room, but this was funny. We either had to use 1 finger or 2 fingers. Why? I don't know. I thought that was kind of odd.
Oh, everybody knows.
And then, of course, she had a bell like that she'd ring if we were out for recess or if it was time for school to start. That's the only kind of, and another thing I remember, there was no inside plumbing or anything, and if we wanted a drink, there was just a big pail with a dipper in it, and we'd all drink out of that dipper. I mean, We're all still 85, 86 years old, so it didn't kill us, but so unsanitary, you know, that's what I'm thinking.
My name is Leslie O'Ryan, and I attend Bertha, School District 36. Like, I'll never forget that, School District 36, right? You never forget those kinds of things. I came along in the 60s, right before all of the, or kind of at the time when there was a lot of consolidation going on with all the schools. So I was lucky to have gone to a fairly modern school. We had indoor plumbing and bathrooms in the basement. It was a large school. And we had our cloakroom and then had another large room where we could store materials and so on and so forth. My teacher, Carl Porter, it was kind of interesting because he did have a lot of male school teachers, and he was a farmer and also a teacher. And he was really, I think, a really good role model. He was very strict with us, but he was also very kind. The only time I remember him being really upset was when one of the students, he was maybe like a 7th grader, I think he must have said a swear word, and he did get his mouth washed out with soap. And that is true. We all really behaved as a result of that. But I really remember that event happening. School was, I love country school. And I think a couple of things that I really felt about the value of a country school was that we really learned the idea of independent learning, but interdependent learning. So we did learn from the older kids, and we all sort of learned from each other. So it was really, I think, really taught us not only about learning stuff or learning facts, but we learned how to think. And I think that was really the value of having small classrooms and getting a lot of attention, one-on-one actually, from the teacher and kind of all working together. We didn't have, like, I think nowadays in a lot of the elementary schools, they always have like a sort of a pet, like a hamster or something in the room. But we didn't need that because we were all farm kids. And we're totally surrounded by animals. We started the school day. It was always kind of interesting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I think they still do that today. But then we always started like with music. And we all stood around the piano and sang these songs. And I never had a feeling like somebody was like the vocalist. Like nowadays, I think for kids, you know, you always have the kids who are going to be the singers and the athletes or whatever. But we all sort of sang together. And then when Christmas came, there were kids, I think, who did stand out a bit, probably were sort of selected. So we started out with those kinds of activities. We also did a lot of square dancing. And every year there was an annual event. It was a county event where all the country schools got together and did square dancing down at the county courthouse. And so this was sort of this event that you were preparing for. And I think a lot of that happened at the country school. You know, Christmas was a huge time where we made our own decorations. Everybody prepared. Everybody dressed up. You know, it was this idea of this was this big event. And it was really something very special. And as was Valentine's Day, Halloween, these were, I think, things that the community participated in. It really made life really special, I think, because you knew everybody participated. Back then, kids, I don't remember many kids ever having like peanut allergies and all of these things that they have today. Like you're saying, you know, we all drank out of the same thing, and people would bake things and bring treats, and they were delicious, I think. And we didn't have to have all these packaged things because of all the allergies. You know, kids would get mumps and stuff, but they just didn't have all that other stuff. So it was kind of it was fun, but we worked really, really hard. And once a year, the superintendent would come, And so we would get ready for that event, and we really wanted to show her that we were all learning and stuff. I remember thinking, what is a principal? It took me a long time to get my head around that. And I, to this day, really always wonder about that, I guess. But I think it was also very magical. I remember going to the windows when gypsy wagons would go down country roads. And so our teacher would say, oh, there was a gypsy wagon. And people cannot believe that. But we would all watch as things like that, as the gypsies went down the country road with their horses and wagons. Last thing I'll share is that, kind of that sense of interdependence or community, I think, kind of culminated in even the county fair. So we all would do projects, art projects and things like that, and then they would go to the county fair. All the schools would have their exhibits, and then you would get a ribbon and always, I guess, hope for a purple. I'm not sure I ever got one, not a good artist. But it was fun, and it was great to see your things exhibited. So that I think that now they have that sort of multi-age movement that's coming back in the school systems, and I'm glad to see it